Hello there, it is Jo from Minerva, and today I'm here for a sew along. I'm going to be making a pair of tailored trousers. Today's sew along is for maybe a little more advanced sewers, and so I'll be concentrating on the complex parts of the pattern, the button fly, the welt pockets and the front slanted pockets and the waistband and all the bits of finishing. And the pattern I'm going to use is the Sasha Trousers. The Sasha trousers from Closet Core are a really smart staple wardrobe piece that you would use for daytime or evening wear. You make the trousers in a stretch fabric, so you'll need to test your stretch of your fabric. I'll show you that in a moment. And there's details here. There's two views. There are a long-legged version and there is a tapered leg version. It's got quite a slim fitting leg, belt loops, slanted pockets, welt pockets on the back. So there's lots of details to get stuck into, and I'll show you how to do the zip fly. I'm making a navy pair today. I'll try them on at the end for you. I'm not going to make any adjustments to the pattern, so you might want to check in with some of our trouser fitting videos. And you'll definitely be wanting to make a toile of this pattern if you have not made trousers before, because you'll want to get the fit right on the leg, especially for a tapered leg, because you don't just want to shorten them from the bottom. The fabric I've got today to make these trousers is a stretch twill. So it's a really nice, really closely woven fabric. It's got an element of stretching which makes your comfort on your trousers really great. It also means you can fit them really well, so you'll definitely get that close fitting tailored trouser. And you'll have a stretch in the width of the fabric, but not in the straight grain. So this is the selvage here and that's straight. I'll try and show you the texture of the fabric. There you go. So it's really smooth grain. And in the second page of the pattern is a guide for the stretch. So I'll try and show you in the air. So you match up the end of the fabric and you measure off that length of fabric. And if your fabric can stretch to the next line, then you've got enough stretch in this fabric for you to measure yourself from the pattern and get the fit intended from the pattern. It will give you the finished garment measurements. You can find other fabrics on our website that have got an element of stretch, so you might find a stretch sateen, you might find a stretch cotton, but you will be looking for something with that bit of stretch. Otherwise, if you don't have that stretch in your fabric, you might need to size up. You will definitely need to make a toile if you're not using a stretch fabric. You can make this pattern with a stable fabric, but you're going to have a change of fit. So this fabric is perfect. All the fabrics from this range I will have listed below the video. Also the notions, the pattern, the zip and all the bits and pieces that you need to complete this project. They will be under the Minerva feed of this video, also the Sasha trousers, and also you will see a blurb underneath the Minerva YouTube video, and the details will take you to that link. Just for ease today, I've cut a few things differently to how you might cut them if you were cutting them for making the trousers yourself. So I've cut some of the pocket facings in a different fabric. I've cut the waistband interfacing in a different fabric, a little contrast, a little bit of fun on the inside, which you can do too, because it's a great way to use up your scraps. But it does help me with a darker fabric on a video for you to see a pocket lining as opposed to the pocket bag, or the waistband front and the waistband back. So you'll see I've cut some pieces of fabric out today. It's from our linen viscose range, so I'm using that linen to make the details on the inside of my trousers. You need to make sure when you are cutting out that you're getting that stretch going across your body, so you can't just turn your pattern pieces around. You need to make sure that from hip to hip you're working with the stretch of the fabric. Size wise, the pattern goes from a 0 to a size 20. That doesn't mean so much, you need to know the measurements. So it goes from a waist, 24-inch waist, up to a 39-inch waist, a 33-inch hip up to a 48-inch hip, and everything in between. You'll need to take a measurement of the narrowest part of your waist and the widest part of your hip, match up to the pattern. You may need to grade between pieces. If you are changing the sidelines, you'll need to make sure that you're changing any corresponding pieces that work with that. So if you make the hips a little wider, then you might need to change your pocket pieces. So you can check out the trouser video and that might help you a little bit there. Again, a toile is useful. You might need to try a toile, see if you need to change the crotch rise and all those more complex things that need to be done at the cutting out stage. Okay, this is a sew along, so less of the chit chat. I'm assuming that you've got some sewing knowledge for this sew along today. You're making trousers with a fly and welt pocket, so let's look at some of the details. The first part of the pattern is to apply interfacing to all of the pieces that need them. So there's a little mark on the pattern piece. I like to put my pattern into little chunks. So I've got the back panel trouser pieces, then I've got all the welt bits that go on the back, then I've got the front panels, and I've got all the pocket pieces. So I like to keep everything in piles of each component of the pattern. So first of all, you need to apply interfacing to your pieces, set up your machine, and you're ready to sew. I've got the pile here with all of the back pieces. So these are the pocket linings for the welt. They're all marked, the pocket bag and the main trouser piece. I've marked the darts. I've used tailor's tacks and some chalk. So put the darts into the back pieces and give them a press. And it might distort your welt pocket mark a little bit, so you can re-straighten that up. And then you're ready to start making the welts. Piece L is an interfacing piece only, so you're going to cut a piece of interfacing and place that over the welt marking on the back of the fabric. I've just remarked the shape through so that I can see it for the next part. The right side hasn't got anything on it at the moment. The pocket bags, which is piece J, has some markings on it. I did mention I'd be doing this in some separate fabric. And I've overlocked and serged both long edges. I've transferred the markings from the pattern, see them there, up to there and to there. And we're going to look at piece I, which is the back pocket facing. And that little piece is going to go on the wrong side of the fabric. And it'll mean that through the welt, you'll see navy blue fabric, not a patterned piece. So 3mm from the edge. We're going to add the welts to the back of the trousers, and they've got a pocket bag inside. So there's a general construction for this part of the pattern. It's pretty similar on most patterns. If you've got a back welt pocket, the instructions will be as I'm doing them today. You definitely need all of the markings on the pattern. That will show you where to do the fold, where to do the opening, where to sew to. All of that is really critical if you want a successful welt pocket. We've done a bit of the prep. And now we're going to put the next piece on. I've transferred the markings to the front, and we've got piece H, which is the welt. And it's interfaced on the back. So with right sides together, the right side of the welt touching the right side of the trousers, we're going to match up those welt positions. You can do it in lots of different ways, but I just put a couple of pins through in those corner positions. And then I can transfer the rectangle shape onto the fabric, and I will see it then when I'm sewing it. You know you're getting it the right way round because you'll be able to see the right side of the dart and the wrong side of the welt. I've now got my accurate rectangle for sewing. And to hold this in place, I'm going to tack all the way around. Turn the leg over so the wrong side is facing up, facing you. And position the back pocket lining on the back leg with the right side of the lining touching the wrong side of the leg. Match the notch on the pocket bag to the dart at the top along the waistband, and ensure the pocket lining is centered on the welt location. So you need the welt to be in the center of the pocket bag, and pin this in place. I've used a pin here to mark the centre of the welt so that I can feel it through the fabric, and then I know that I've got it centred. Just adding a few extra pins there and a few more to secure just around the outside while I flip it over. Just keep checking your position. I've got that facing down there at the bottom of the bag here, and my welt on the right side of the fabric. Just going to go over that chalk mark again so that I can really clearly see it. I did put it on, but it's just rubbed off a little bit, but I need to see that rectangle so that I can sew really accurately around that shape. I'm going to go through the welt, through the trousers and through the lining, and I'll see the rectangle on the wrong side. You need that rectangle to be really accurate with sharp corners, and you can tie off the ends. The pocket bag will fold up now. There's two markings, and the facing, the navy part, will be just behind that welt opening. So we can take all of those bits of tacking and any pins that you use to hold the pocket lining out of the place out of your trousers. And then we're going to take a little fold press on the top and the bottom of the welt. So press down the seam allowances on the top and the bottom, and then you're ready to make a cut in the welt. You need to cut some really long triangles. Don't make these skimpy, otherwise it will be a tricky manoeuvre when you come to sew them down. This will be your cut line. Take some really sharp scissors and cut evenly through the centre of your welt towards the triangle and out to the corners. Don't snip through the stitching, but get as close as you can. Now you can post that welt through the pocket hole. It'll keep trying to ping back, but just push it through the hole. You might need to just pin it down to hold it in place a little bit. And if you need to make a bit more of a snip into the corners, you can do that so that you don't have any puckers. If you press it, you can really see if you've got it accurate or not. When it's pressed, you should have a rectangular opening with nice sharp corners, and on the reverse you'll have that seam allowance already folded down. Those pieces should go to the end of your pocket lining. I've got a little bit over there, so maybe it wasn't quite in the centre, but I'm just going to trim that off. It will be fine. Lift up the lower part of the welt and press the seam open, and then make an accordion fold in your welt so that it covers up the hole. Try and be as accurate as you can here, just pressing up and pinning the edges. From the right side, you'll see that the welt has now covered over the rectangle hole, and you may need to give it all a final press. We're going to look at how to attach the ends. You can finish the welt in different ways. You can top stitch on the right side all the way around the opening. You can do a stitch in a ditch along the bottom, but you will definitely need to secure down the ends of your welt, and that's where those really nice long triangles come into play, because you're going to sew right along the edge of that triangle. It's tricky to get in there with a machine, so go nice and slow. This will hold down the ends of the welt, and you can do some hand stitching on the reverse, and that will just hold down all of those loose areas. I like to hand stitch those down, and I hand stitched down the top and the bottom of the welt as well. The pattern does give instructions for sewing those on the machine if you wish to. Here are the pocket bag markings, so that's our fold line, and that should take our bag up to the waistline. Pin just in from the edge of the pockets because you want to be able to fold that back and get it under the machine. So when you lift it up, you can get at each side of the pocket. We're going to sew those down both sides. Let's flip to the front now. So we're going to put on the front pockets. They've got a little bit of stabilisation. They're really well made. That's what all these little details are, what make these a really tailored pair of trousers. Here are all the front pocket components. So this is the fly. We'll keep that for later. We've got some inner and outer pocket facings and a bottom pocket lining and a top pocket lining. So let's take a look at these facings first. We're going to finish the outer edges of those pocket linings. So around this curve and around the edge of the other one. And we're going to add the notches so that we've got those for later. This is G2, which is the bottom pocket lining. I'm going to mark it wrong side so I don't get confused. With wrong sides together, position the outer pocket facing on the bottom pocket lining. Pin that in place. And I always find it helpful to have my pockets in opposite positions on the table so that I don't get them the wrong way round or make two right pockets. So mark that again with wrong side, and the outer pocket facing goes on the outer edge. I'm going to sew around the perimeter of these facings with a 6mm seam allowance. This is the top pocket lining. So this one is in a different colour just so that I can show you different things. It's got this slanted edge on it. So we're going to put the inner pocket facings on that slanted edge. We've got the wrong sides together. Match up the notches and pin in place. Again, we're going to sew 6mm around the perimeter of the facing and repeat for the other side, making sure that we make two opposite pockets. This is the wrong side of the bottom pocket, and we're going to put it wrong sides together with the top pocket. Match up the curved edges and sew around the edge. You can either French seam that, or you can sew it at 16mm and serge the edges. Again, I've laid my pockets out so I make sure I'm doing two opposite pockets. We've got our front pieces and we're looking at this slanted edge here. And we're going to match it up with the slanted edge of the pocket. So with the inside of the pocket, so this is the wrong side of the lining and the wrong side of the pocket bag, we're going to put that outer facing touching the slanted edge. So our pocket bag is open, it's just under my watch there, that's the seam, and we're going to pin that in place and sew at 15mm. Then when we flip it out, we can work on it a little bit more. Once that's sewn, we can open out the pocket and you'll see the pocket facing is touching the edge of the slanted pocket, and we're going to understitch that, and that will help the pocket to fold back on itself, and we'll get that really neat finish on the side. This is what we're aiming for. When you've sewn them, those pocket bags might extend past the fly a little bit, but we'll deal with those later. And on the back you should see the bottom lining, and then underneath is the patterned lining. Doesn't matter that you won't see that wrong side of that lining because we've got that nice facing on the edge of our slanted pocket. We're going to put the fly front on now and the zip along the front. So you'll need to have a marking tool, some tacking thread. You're going to make sure that you get your marking really accurate so that your fly front looks really neat. We're going to finish the edge of the left fly, not the right fly. And we're going to put them right sides together and match up the notches at the top of the fly. There's two markings there, look. We're going to pin those in place and look for the dot marking from the pattern and draw a straight line from those notches at the top down to that dot, and then below the dot we're going to take the 1.5 centimetre seam allowance, and the top's going to be stitched with a basting stitch and underneath is going to be a 2.5 stitch length. So the top bit is just temporary, that's just a basting stitch, 5mm length, and down here is a permanent line of stitching. We're going to snip from the outer edge to the dot, use some sharp scissors, and of course don't go through the stitching. That will release the seam from the fly, so now they can work independently of each other. I've pressed that open and I've made sure that I've marked my trousers right and left. That will really help me to put the zip on. On the left hand side of the trousers, put the zip right side down and match the edge of the zipper tape to the centre front. But you're only going to be sewing that to the fly, not to the trouser front. So make sure that the fly can move on its own with the zip attached to it. We're going to sew down that seam with our zipper foot on the machine. Once it's attached, you're going to flip the zip to the left, keep the fly on the right, fold that all back, and you're going to top stitch really close to the edge of the zipper teeth. Once you've done that, that's left side is as much as we're going to do at the moment. So from the left, we're going to pull the zip over to the right fly, and again pin the zip to just the fly, not to the trousers. This can be released now, it's not touching the trousers. We're going to use our zipper foot and sew down the edge of the zipper teeth. This will all feel really secure now, everything is attached, but you can't get at it because it's all basted down from the front. Using the top stitching guide piece, which is N from your pattern pieces, line up the template on top of your trousers on the right side and use a chalk just to mark a top stitching line for your zip fly. You need to make sure that that line will catch the fly underneath. So make sure it catches that bit when you sew it, and you should be able to feel through it that you're getting all of the layers. I'm going to deal with that extended zip and a bar tack in a few frames time. That's all sewn down. You can sponge off or dust off your chalk, and we can take a look at the fly shield, which is part D. There's two of those, one's interfaced and one isn't, and we're going to put them right sides together, pin around the curved edge, sew around there to make one fly shield. When you've sewn it, you can take some of the fabric bulk out around the curve, turn it the right way out, give that a really nice press, and then you're going to do a row of top stitching around the outer curved edge. And that's your fly shield ready made. Let's see where it goes. So the fly shield goes on the left, and you line it up with the edge of the zipper tape. It's getting quite tight in there now, so there's not so much room to handle your fabric. So I started pinning it, but actually I wanted it to be really accurate. I wanted to get under there on the machine more easily, so I've used a piece of basting tape. This is a washable basting tape. It's really useful for small areas like zips. I take the tape off, it's double-sided. I'm going to stick my fly shield on. Then I won't have the pins in the way when I'm trying to sew such a small space on my machine. I'm going to sew along the edge of there, all the way down to the bottom. When it's done, you can trim off any excess, and you can undo the basting stitches on the front. Just go steadily here. You don't want to catch any of the fabric. Take the stitches out one or two at a time. The zip is now operational, and you've got a really nice big fly shield behind for comfort. The last bit of the zip is to do a bar tack at the bottom. I've got a little bit of spare zip there, so I'm going to bar tack across the end of the zip and then cut it off, but you could put a little tab across if you wanted to. I've just bar tacked, and that's under the fly shield. We've got all those pocket details in place now, so we're going to put together the main pieces of the trousers, the outseam and the inseam, and then we can take a look at the next part. Has a curved waistband, so sometimes on a waistband I will not cut it on the fold. I'll chop it in half so that I can make any kind of adjustments to that if I want to. I've kept it as it is now, but I know from my pattern toiles for myself, I sometimes need to nip in the waistband at the back so that it doesn't flare out. You'll have interfacing applied to your waistband. I've only interfaced one of my pieces just because I'm making a sample. I just wanted to be able to have a little bit of stiffness. Some people like a really firm waistband and some people like a soft waistband, and that's your choice. To make the belt loops, you will need to cut one layer of piece K. And you'll make continuous belt loops and cut them up. You need to fold the long edges of the belt loop into the centre. If you apply a little bit of steam here, that helps to get a crisp finish. Get both edges to meet in the middle. And then you're going to fold the whole piece in half and take a top stitch down the edge. When you've made your belt loop, you're then going to cut it into 5 pieces. I've just marked mine. It's 5 equal pieces, but I just mark them out. And they're ready to go onto your trousers. Look for the markings on the pattern, or you could just put them where you want to, as long as they're equidistant apart from the side seam. I'm using clips now because I'm getting a few more layers of fabric. And I'm going to stay stitch around the top, and that will hold the belt loops. This is the inner waistband. It's the contrasting fabric that I'm using, so I have interfaced this one. I'm going to cut 6 millimeters off the outer edge of the waistband. And that means that I can add a piece of binding to the edge. You don't have to do this. I like it as a really nice couture finish, but you could just serge or zigzag the edge. This is the inner waistband, and we're going to put the outer waistband on top, right sides together, matching up the raw edges. With the right sides together, we can then take a look at this seam. So you can put a piece of stay tape or twill tape here, which will stop your waistband from stretching out if you think it might do that. And you need to take a 15mm seam allowance. You press the inside facing away from the outer waistband so that all the seam allowance is touching the facing. You can trim that out if you want to, and you're going to understitch on the facing. That will help the waistband to roll over, especially if you're using a contrasting fabric. You might need to replace the marking, so that's the centre front, the back, the side and the centre front. So I'll start on the back, so I'm going to match up the back seam with the centre back marking. Again, I'm on clips because I'm still sandwiching in those belt loops. I'm going to match up these side notches, and then I can ease in any fabric between those marks. That's the back complete. Let's take a look at the front. Open the zip. On the fly shield side, you'll have a mark, and that's going to match up with the zip. Ease the rest of that front section in. And you will have quite a bit of fabric hanging over, and that's fine. That's spare, and we're going to deal with that later. But your waistband does attach to the fly shield. You'll have those belt loops sandwiched in between. We're going to sew around here using a 1.5cm seam allowance. Just take a moment here to check that your waistbands are the same widths at the end. So just do a little bit of folding and rolling to see what it would be like when it's finished. And if it's not, then just unpick a little bit back and make sure the widths of both ends of your waistband are equal. I've put some interfacing in the area where there's going to be a buttonhole, a button and the hook and bar for the trouser fastenings. And if your teeth have extended, then you might need to be changing the length of your zip there, or taking a few teeth off with pliers. You're aiming for this nice flush finish on the edge of your trouser front. So pin down your facing and just take off the edge where the binding is. Fold that under. I'll show you how it's done here. So we've got that little bit extending. That's 1.5 centimetres. That's how much I've allowed. I'm going to fold the facing to touch the waistband. Fold back the facing 45 degrees so that it's kept out of the way. Pin that in place. And the stitch line that I'm going to take needs to go really, really close to the front fly. It's easier to see on the reverse. So on the back, your stitch line needs to be straight and it needs to come right up to the fly band here. Just be careful that you don't get that at a different angle. And take that stitch line. Turn it through just to take a look, and you can see my angle is going in a little bit, and really I need it to go a little more obtuse. So I'm just going to pull that back and just have another go there. I want to get that at a really good right angle, nice and straight. When I'm happy with that front fly, I'm then going to sew that waistband facing down. I'm using a stitch in the ditch, so it's pinned from the right side. I'm making sure I'm not getting anything caught underneath. I put a white bobbin in the bottom so that it wasn't noticeable, and the dark thread on the top. We're on to all the little details now, so we're going to finish off those belt loops that we did during the waistband process, and we're going to hem our trousers. Belt loops are my nemesis. I can never quite get them on straight, so if you want some help you can check out my video. But you need to be sewing down the tops of your belt loops and making sure that they are still functional. We're also going to sew the hems now, but I'm not going to show you that. You can choose your own method. This is what the inside of your trousers will look like, and we've just got the fastenings to finish. I'm using a hook and bar. You'll need one of these, one of the hooks and one of the bars, and that will go on the outer edge of the trousers. On the inner edge you'll make a buttonhole, and the button will go on the inside. Okay, here are the trousers. This is a size 12, and I get a little bit of gape there, but that's something I get all the time because I have a sway back adjustment, so I would have ordinarily split that waistband and taken a little bit out of the back. It's got the welt pockets with the little linings inside, the side slant pockets nice and deep, the belt loop detail here. Obviously you're getting a little flash of white there, and that's because I made that waistband lining in a different colour, and I did that for the ease of the video so that I could show you right sides and wrong sides and things, but you would be making that in a fabric that is closer to the navy colour. If you wanted to choose a pattern, or you'd have to be a little bit more accurate with your press there on the front. The zip fly is operational, and I've got the hook and bar and the button with the buttonhole. They're a very close fitting pair of trousers. You do need that stretch woven fabric to get the fit, but it's always a good idea to toile a pair of trousers. Thank you very much for watching today. I hope you have enjoyed this video, whether you have the intention of making trousers that are more tailored, whether you wanted to check out whether you have the skills to move up a couple of levels. If you've made trousers of your own, we would love to see them. So do make an account with us, share your makes, tag your pattern and your fabric, and gives a little bit of information about how you fit trousers, because a lot of makers are a little bit frightened of making trousers, but the more information they can glean, the better their sewing experience. You can also join our craft club and receive discounts and offers throughout the year. We would love to know if you would like to see any other types of sew-alongs as well, so you can leave those in the comments below. Do call again here for more sewing inspiration. There are sew-alongs, there's learn to sew videos from me, there is some pattern pairing and new fabric releases. They're all from Vicky, and it's really great to keep the content flowing and see you here. Thank you very much for watching. See you again soon.